Howdy, I'm Darren Hibbs with the 10-Week Bible, and I want to share just a brief thought with you out of Genesis chapter 28. When Jacob had to flee his brother Esau, he had this encounter at what became known as the city of Bethel. At the time, it wasn't named the city of Bethel, but he named it that because of this encounter. Bethel means house of God. And he has this dream this night where the Lord appears to him and basically reiterates the promise, the covenant promise that God made with Abraham and then again with Isaac. He's now making it to Jacob. And one of the things that I see in the story of Jacob is up to this point, Jacob has at least believed his father, the stories that his father and his grandfather have told about this promise that God has made to them and to their offspring. Esau didn't either believe it or didn't care because he sold his birthright and just all of the things that go along with that. They were really negative. He did not care, Esau that is, did not care about the promises of God that were eternal in nature. Jacob doesn't seem like he really knew God for himself, but he at least believed that there were good things coming to him from God. So he at least tried to steal these things from Esau, who was more than willing to give them up because he valued them at nothing. But now God appears to Jacob and says he's going to make good on this promise that he made to Abraham and Isaac and now to him. And Jacob wakes up from this, and I want to read what he spoke. Starting in verse 20, this is Genesis 28, starting in verse 20. Then Jacob made a vow saying, "If God will be with me and watch over me on this journey I am taking and will give me food to eat and clothes to wear so that I return safely to my father's household, then the Lord will be my God, and this stone that I have set up as a pillar will be God's house, and all that you give me I will give you a tenth." So Jacob here, he undershoots like crazy. God's promised him all of the land of Israel. He's promised him descendants as much as the dust on the earth. He's promised him just so much. And Jacob says, "Well, I tell you what, God, if you'll just give me food and clothes and bring me back to my father, then I'll serve you." Something about this moment, it's an important moment in Jacob's life, and it's an important moment in every believer's life, where they go from this transition of believing the stories that have been told to them by their parents in Sunday school, wherever, to where now they want to encounter the Lord for themselves. They want to know God for themselves. Jacob has at least believed the stories about God. Now he's had this encounter with God, and it changes everything. I want to know you, God. I want to serve you. I want to follow you. God makes these huge promises, and Jacob says, "I tell you what, I'll set the bar really low. You've promised me this. All you have to do is give me this, and I will serve you. I'll know that you're real. I'll know that you're good, and I'll serve you with all of my heart." And we're going to find out that he's going to do that. We need this kind of moment in our lives. We need an encounter with God. It's sad. It's incredibly sad, but it's entirely possible that we could study God's word our entire lives and never actually know him. The Pharisees and the Sadducees and the teachers of the law, they studied this book day and night their whole life. But when they met Jesus, when they met the living Word, God in the flesh, when they looked in his eyes, they didn't know him. It is possible for us to study God's Word and not to know him. That's why we have to have an encounter with the living Word, this Word. We have to fill our minds and fill our hearts with it. But it cannot be the end that we're going for. It's the means to the end. The end that we're going for is knowing God. We have to have an encounter with him. Now, an encounter with him may be something as simple as when you're reading this, it connects and you feel the presence of God in the words. You realize they're true and they're real. That can be an encounter. I encourage you, seek the Lord, ask the Lord for your own encounters with God, just like Jacob. It may not be this dramatic. And it doesn't have to be crazy. But ask the Lord for an encounter with God. In fact, if you have an encounter with God, you'll know it's Him because it will sound like what you've been filling your mind with. God's not going to go contrary to His word. So when you have an encounter with Him, you can have confidence in it because He will sound just like His word already does. So fill your mind, fill your heart with His word, but seek Him for an encounter so that when you see Him face to face, you'll recognize Him. Thanks. I'm Darren Hibbs with the 10-Week Bible, and I'll see you next time.